Welcome to another MoneyMax Monday video. Today we're going to be looking at how to keep our budgets in pristine condition by looking at some budget troubleshooting. Now, in the very first Monday video, we looked at how to build a budget, which is essentially a document or system or spreadsheet which keeps track of our income and outgoings. Or to put it another way, a budget is a way of staying in control of our money. But what we can find is that even having a budget doesn't mean that you necessarily stay on track with your income and expenditure, which can be incredibly frustrating. So we have to ask ourselves, what problems can budgets run into, and what can we do to solve those problems to keep our budgets ticking over as smoothly as possible? Well, firstly, when we're making a budget, we have to be as honest and accurate with ourselves as we can possibly be. If you use the MoneyMax Budget Planner, which is available for free at moneymaxuk.org/downloads, you will see on several of the pages it has a box with big letters spelling out a month is 4.3 weeks. Now, when I was first putting together a budget more than a decade ago, I just assumed that a month was 4 weeks because 4 was the closest whole number to the number of weeks in a month. It's much closer than 5, for example. But if you actually look at it, only 9%, not even 9%, of the months in a year actually have exactly 4 weeks, just February by itself, which means that you've got 91% of months where your budgeting is inaccurate. Now, a budget being inaccurate, 0.3 of a week every month, might not sound like a lot, but if you're talking about things on which we spend a lot of money, such as food or rent or council tax or these kind of things, and they're not budgeted for properly, our budgets are going to be out of line for most of the year. So if we record in our budget that a month is actually 4.3 weeks, we'll be much more accurate when it comes to allocating what we're going to be spending money on. Equally, a bad habit I got into in my early days of budgeting was to round every transaction to the nearest pound. So, for example, if I went swimming and this cost me £4.30, I would record that I had spent £4 at the swimming pool. But this obviously wasn't accurate. I wrongly assumed that the budget would balance itself out, so that every time I rounded down would be met with an equal opportunity for me to round up to the nearest pound. Now, this might work in theory, but if this happened 4 or 5 times a week, over a year we could be hundreds of pounds adrift from what we are actually supposed to have in our bank. After all, one of the reasons we actually have a budget is to really know how much money we've got, and guessing certainly doesn't help that. Something that plagues even the best budgeters is keeping track of all of our spending. With so many ways to spend money, we can easily make dozens of transactions a day without even thinking about it. So, for example, if we get a train ticket and then lunch and then a coffee and then a slice of cake and then a cinema ticket and then some popcorn and then a drink and then another coffee and then a taxi home, we could have spent hundreds of pounds worth of transactions in an afternoon, and if we don't stay on top of it, that money is going to run away from us. So, in order to stop us spending money that we don't have, there's a couple of tips and tricks we can use to stay on top of our day-to-day spending. One way of doing so is to use an internet banking app, which connects to your bank straight through the app on your smartphone. This is a way of viewing how much money you have, monitoring your transactions, and if you have dedicated savings accounts for, say, clothes shopping, you can see exactly how much you have to spend on that particular day, and once you've spent it, you can make the transfer straight from that small savings account into the account that you did the transaction from. Another way to stay on top of your spending is to simply move away from using a debit or credit card at all, which can have the appearance and the effect of not really feeling like spending money, especially with contactless payments, and move away from using plastic and just use cash. So if, for example, your weekly food and grocery shop is £80 in your budget, take out £80 in cash, and then you have a very physical limit on how much you can spend. It is impossible to spend more cash than you have. This is helpful for people who regularly go over their budgets because there's a built-in limit in how much you can spend. Now, there are drawbacks to this system, such as what happens if you lose the cash. Usually it's just gone, but it does have a very physical limit which can be helpful. Also, what can be surprising about having a budget is how often it might need to be updated. Some people have this idea that a budget is like a static document, like a will, that you refer to every few years and only update if something major happens in your life. But we should actually treat it as more of a live document that reflects day-to-day what we're doing, more like a social media feed. My personal budget is updated a few times a month to reflect changes in income or expenditure, or simply what I'm changing my priorities on. If I now want to spend £5 more a week on shopping, that needs to go into the budget. If I want to spend £10 less on birthday presents, that needs to go into the budget as well. All this is to say that our budget needs to be a document that we refer to and edit often. There are, of course, many reasons why we would need to change our budget. If we get a pay increase at work, we need to edit our budget. If our phone bill increases, we need to edit our budget. If we get a new job, that means we have to travel twice as far, we need to edit our budget. If we become eligible for certain forms of benefits, we need to edit our budget. In theory, our budget should reflect our financial situation down to the last penny, but it can only do that if we are honest with ourselves and if we keep updating it anytime anything changes in our lives. Furthermore, we can encounter cash flow problems with our budget. If we get our income from more than one source, there might be a few days or a week or so in the month where the amount of money we have in does not match the amount of money that we have going out. Even if our budget is nailed down to the last penny, when we get income into our accounts could leave us with some cash flow problems. So, for example, a builder who is self-employed might work on a building project for 6 weeks or 10 weeks or 20 weeks, and even if they were earning enough to cover all of their expenditure, they might not get paid as often as they had to make, say, mortgage payments or car payments. So let's say for this scenario that our builder is getting paid at the end of a 10-week project, but that his mortgage payment is due on the 1st of every month. How does he go about solving this problem? Several of the tips already mentioned in this video could help, but also some creative accountancy, making good use of savings accounts, keeping track of income and expenditure could also help solve this problem. Also, he could look at his budget and see which of his expenditure is movable, i.e. that which isn't fixed by an external factor. He could arrange it so that this movable expenditure coincides with when he gets paid. So if he's saving £100 a month for a holiday, he doesn't necessarily need to put that aside every single month. If he's getting paid every 10 weeks, he could put aside £232 when he gets paid, which will be the equivalent of saving £100 a month, but it means that he doesn't run into budgeting cash flow problems. Finally, we might find that our budgets don't really cater for things that happen irregularly or unexpectedly. In order to solve this, we can put in place a banking system called piggy banking, but this is something that we're going to look at in next week's video. Thank you very much for watching today. Please leave any comments, questions or video requests in the comment section below. As we've just mentioned, next week we're going to look at piggy banking, which is a creative way of saving for the future. And so until then, have a very good week and I'll see you next Monday.